I did want to take some time before we do a little bit of the pregame too for LSU and Kentucky here tonight, 8 p.m. Let's go get them. Let the Fighting Matt McMahons. One position group that we are not talking enough about when it comes to LSU is this offensive line. Now, we've mentioned them. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago when Brad Davis had a really big commitment in recruiting, especially coming from the north part of Louisiana, and Devin Harper. I think going into spring, once we get out there and spring camp starts and spring football starts, I really do believe that we are going to have the conversation all throughout spring and into the summer until game one against USC, that the biggest position group on this team right now, the best position group on this team right now, is your offensive line. Now, it does fall in line with who we thought Brian Kelly would be, right? Meaning, Brian Kelly at Notre Dame was known for, the number one thing he was known for was having really good offensive line play, really good tight ends. Comes to LSU, completely 1,000% happens with him when he comes here after he leaves Notre Dame. Not that surprising and shocking. My argument had always been, well, if Brian Kelly got the athletes like he could at LSU, his offense would go crazy. We saw that this year, obviously, with Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. You know the gist. You know what I'm talking about here. Hell, you just watched it. But now turning the page into 2024, I have a sneaky suspicion, which I'm sure that all of you know this, and it's something that you talk about when you're sitting around the water cooler talking to your buddy about what you think 2024 is going to be like. I just don't know if we've talked about how good they potentially could be. Now, it's interesting because I think that this offensive line was better in 2023 than they were in 2022. And mainly due to the fact you have two true freshmen that were coming into their sophomore years in Will Campbell and Emory Jones. And you had a second-year guy returning to another year starter in Miles Frazier, who, guys, by the way, has started a lot of games at LSU. The same amount as Will Campbell. The same amount is Emory Jones. And Garrett Dellinger, man, he's been here a long time too. You got a lot of talent along this offensive line, and you have a lot of experience. Now, the one place that you don't have experience, okay, is at center. You're probably going to push up a highly recruited guy in DJ Chester, who was a top 100 dude, and you've already seen him play a little bit before. Charles Turner got hurt in the Missouri game. DJ Chester came in for Marlon Martinez. It was actually why Marlon Martinez left and went to Mississippi State, because he got beat out by DJ Chester. This offensive line, I think I could make the argument at LSU, this offensive line at LSU, I think I can make the argument could potentially be the best overall unit in the entire SEC, regardless of what the unit is. What do I mean? I think LSU's offensive line has the potential to be the best unit of any unit, whether wide receiver, safety, corner, anywhere in the conference. Now, you got a really good offensive line at Texas, but I think that yours is better. I think you got a really good secondary and D-line at Georgia. I do think that your offensive line is better than those units that they have. I just look at where LSU has come from in the last two seasons and how much even more they have progressed along the O-line from 22 to 23 from 22 to 23 and now going into 2024 here. Man, the sky is the limit for this unit. And a little bit, I don't want to say sky is the limit for this offense and Garrett Nussmeier and this running game. But, man, when you're able to win up front in this league and you're able to win up front by pushing dudes around, ask Michigan how that works. See what Michigan did. Now, you want to know why Michigan, the last 2 years before this year, when they made the playoff and they just couldn't get over the hump? Well, all of their seniors return. All of their starters along that offensive line return. And guys, newsflash to everybody, the Big Ten had better defenses than the SEC did. Outside of Georgia, the Big Ten was a defensive conference. And they showed you, Michigan showed you, when you have an offensive line and how you construct it and how you build it, how Brian Kelly showed you at Notre Dame. Guys, it was the reason why he continued to make playoffs and deep runs of undefeated seasons, and why he continued to get there was because he was able to push guys around and push people around up front. The concern that I have is, what do you look like in the running game outside of Jayden Daniels? Obviously, you have a concern at running back, but from tackle to tackle, from bookend to bookend, you're going to have to tell me and show me a better unit than those five right there. I am looking into the future a little bit on one position. That is DJ Chester. I thought Will Campbell, stud. I actually thought Garrett Dellinger had a really good year. Guys, when do you remember? Like, when do you, outside of Florida State last year, when do you remember looking at Garrett Dellinger and saying to yourself, man, that dude just got destroyed? Maybe 1-2 times, maybe. The argument that you had was Charles Turner at center. That's what most people thought was the weak link here. And I love a center that wears 79. Last time you had a center that wore 79 and a gunslinger at quarterback, you won a national title. Just throwing that out there. I love when a center wears number 79. I think it's the best position group in the entire SEC. Now, last year I made a bold prediction, okay, about this LSU team offensively. Me and Carter had this discussion all offseason last year. My argument to him is that when you had that much production returning and knowing and hearing and guys, please go back to a year ago and listen to what we said about this upcoming year's team. We had a lot of hope for this offense, a lot of hope for Jayden Daniels and what he was doing during the offseason. I am just as bullish on things that I said about this LSU offense last year than I am about this offensive line. I really do think you're going to push a lot of people around. Now, barring injury, okay, like, it is a position group that, quite honestly, guys, stayed relatively healthy all throughout the year last year. And when Emory Jones did go down, you replaced it with a 5-star and Zalance Hurd. Well, the issue with that, though, that in the argument that I can make, I talk to people up at LSU Football Ops, and they think that Weston Davis might be the steal of, somebody that we talk about Weston Davis, but we don't talk about him enough, about how good and athletic he is. I talked to somebody today who told, or not today. What's today? Wednesday? I talked to somebody on Monday at Football Ops who was telling me that they thought that Weston Davis may have a higher ceiling than some of the dudes that are starting on their offensive line right now. That's how high they are on him. Guys, again, that kid Weston Davis did a 360 spin, one-handed dunk, 360. Boom! And then stared somebody down. Guys, that's an O lineman. Maybe that kid should play D-line, as athletic as he is. I do think there's teams out there, Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss. You don't play two of them in the regular season. We've seen this unit. Well, actually, I mean, the argument that you can make, Ole Miss is the only team that you play with probably the best defensive lines in the conference. I look at Ole Miss and say, well, they got the best defensive pass rusher, or one of the best defensive pass rushers in the league last year from Florida. Well, he didn't have a sack last year. He actually didn't even have a pressure last year when he faced Will Campbell. I look at Walter Nolan. Well, Walter Nolan was pretty much almost a non-factor to some extent in that game in the entire second half. Miles Frazier really shutting down Walter Nolan. Okay, well, so you got two guys that we've seen Walter Nolan be taken care of against this offensive line. And we saw the kid Prince, who goes from Florida, had 10 sacks last year, go to Ole Miss, and you just look at yourself and you say, hey, yeah, but they didn't do anything against this LSU O-line last year, and every one of them is returning. It's a position group I'm really high on. And you know that I do not talk about the O-line a lot. I do think people feel, or I feel like if I talk about the offensive line, people will say I'm biased to a position group. I am not. Another year under your belt, I really do think that you're going to start really just destroying dudes. Now, Texas and Georgia got studs, man. They got studs. I think as a unit, you're more athletic. The interior would have to really show up against Georgia, but the tackles would destroy it. You would just have to run and keep on the outside. I'm getting too far in the weeds into the details on that. I would love to know what you guys think. What do you think about the offensive line? Tell us in the comments. What do you think about the O-line? Because the way that I see it, I just don't know if there's a better position group in the SEC. Brad Davis, Brian Kelly have destroyed that position group. Very bullish. Okay. Roderick says Daly balled out last year. Hell yeah, he balled out. Hell yeah, he balled out. Spectrum Wellcare said Dellinger was dominant last year. I don't know what just happened. I have no idea what just happened. My screen went blank. I don't know if the power just flickered or something. I have no idea what just happened. What did he say? Oh, Spectrum Wellcare said Dellinger was dominant last year. Hell yeah, he was dominant. Shit yeah, hell yeah, he was dominant. He had a great year. I thought Miles Frazier after Florida State and when Lance Heard, dude, guys, nothing. We did not talk about this at all last year. When Emory Jones went down last year and got injured, memory serves me correctly, I think he had a high ankle sprain. And Hurd has to come in and play. I think it was against Mississippi State. And we started having the debate, hey, do you finally kick Emory Jones into guard and put Hurd at tackle? Miles Frazier said, hell no, to the no, hell to the no. His game went to another level. Competition will always do that. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you don't have that same type of scenario with Weston Davis. Like, I really just don't know if you're not in that same predicament when it comes to having that much talent. Hell, what does Tyree Adams do this year? Can we see Tyree Adams? Because everything what I've heard, Tyree Adams has had already a great offseason. I'm ready to see that big man. It's going to be a fun matchup. Now, you know what's interesting? The last time I talked about the O-line this much was when we were in fall camp. And I remember because I was using this year handy dandy notebook. And if I go back enough, I would assume that I could find. Okay. Right here. Y'all can't see it. Maybe I could zoom in. This was in August. LSU scrimmage. Denver Harris returns. LSU goes into 101 offensive line periods. Tyree Adams beats Ovia Gofu. Will Campbell beats Ovia Gofu. Dellinger wins both reps against Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo. Charles Turner goes 1-for-1 on Jordan Jefferson. For whatever reason, I don't have what Frazier does. Oh, Frazier here it is at the bottom. Frazier beats Guillory twice. Perkins gets beat twice by Emory Jones. Even in the preseason, we should have taken that as a red flag, myself included. I am guilty as sin with this. Guilty as sin. We should have taken more into account when we came in here and talked about these practice and scrimmage reports that the offensive line was dominating our D-line. You don't need that to happen. You cannot have that happen this year. You need Ovia Gofu to come off the edge on Will Campbell and get a sack. Oh, well, we'll give up a sack. Okay. Braden Swinson, that's what's up. Oh, Will just got him back. He couldn't, Will got pissed off and got him back. Okay, that's what you want to see. It's like the old argument with Jamar Chase and Derek Stingley. Oh, Derek Stingley just caught a pick off of Joe Burrow on Jamar Chase. Oh, shit. All right. That's before Joe Burrow was even Joe Burrow, but you kind of knew he was going to have that swagger with him. Then Jamar Chase runs a fade route, and Derek Stingley couldn't do shit. Couldn't touchdown. Cue the band. Joe Burrow said, anything you can do, I can do better, young freshman. Anything you can do, I can do better.